Hello, my name is Sarah Pate, and I'm a librarian and the director of the Washington Center for the Book, an affiliate of the Library of Congress Center for the Book, administered by Washington State Library. The Washington Center for the Book promotes literacy and a love of books, reading, and libraries. One of our projects is the Washington State Book Awards, and we are thrilled to have you here with us to celebrate Washington State Book Award winner Ellie Peterson. We were so pleased to partner with the Kirkland Branch of the King County Library System to host Ellie's in-person celebration, and now we're thrilled to be bringing an online version of the program to reach folks all around our state and beyond. I'd also like to say a warm welcome and hello to all of those who are with us online, viewing from schools, libraries, and homes. Welcome. Ellie Peterson is a picture book author and illustrator living in Kirkland, Washington. Her work is inspired by the countless interactions she's had with kids after 20 wonderful years as a classroom teacher and her experience growing up as a biracial Army brat. Her goal is to make books that amuse, intrigue, and inspire children of all ages. She lives with her husband, 2 kids, and their dog Daisy. She's the author and illustrator of How to Hug a Pufferfish, which won the Washington State Picture Book Award. And she has 2 books in 2024, Sandcastles Are Forever and A Gooey Duck Is Not a Duck, written by Kendi Wellens. Peterson is also the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator for the Western Washington chapter of SCBWI, City of Kirkland Library Board member, and on the advisory committee of the Bigfoot Kids Book Festival. Ellie, congratulations again on this well-deserved award. Thank you for sharing your work with Washington State and the world.
Hello there. Hi, I'm Ellie Peterson. I am the winner of the Washington State Book Award for picture books for 2023, and it's for this book over here, How to Hug a Pufferfish. I would love to share with you today a little bit about this book and how it came to be, as well as a little bit about myself. And so I have a presentation that I'm going to share. Just give me a moment here. And screen sharing. I am going into presentation mode and away we go. So let me give you a little bit of an agenda for what we're going to do in this presentation. I'm a former teacher, so I like to tell you what you're getting into. I'm going to share how I became an author, the inspiration for How to Hug a Pufferfish, how I created the book. I'm going to read the book to you, share a little bit about why a pufferfish was such a great animal for this story. And then I thought we could try to draw a pufferfish together. All right. Before we do get started with that, though, I want to make sure that I share some thank yous. Number one, I want to make sure that I thank you, the Washington Center for the Book, and especially Sarah Pate, who is the community outreach librarian there. Thank you for making this award possible. Thank you for recognizing How to Hug a Pufferfish, as well as so many other amazing books by Washington State authors and illustrators. I just really appreciate you guys sharing this book with new readers throughout the state. It makes me so excited. I want to also thank Kirkland Library of the King County Library System. They were the hosts for my in-person version of this presentation, and the 2 librarians there, Amy Faulkner and Lawrence Warrow, who helped to make this possible. I really appreciate you for doing that. It was a great time. I want to thank my publisher, Roaring Brook Press, which is an imprint of Macmillan, for making this book possible in the first place. Thank you for seeing How to Hug a Pufferfish and giving it a place in your publishing home. It has been wonderful to work with you. And I also want to make sure that I shine a light on and thank the other finalists for this Picture Book Award, Rob Albanese, Tom Crestadina, and Nikki McClure. A little more on their books. Rob Albanese, good friend of mine, has The Birders. Really funny, really sweet and touching story done in a graphic novel style. It's a story of Ollie, this little boy, and his elderly neighbor and their search for the snowy owl. Working Boats, an inside look at 10 amazing watercraft by Tom Crestodina is just a phenomenal book. If there is anybody in your life who loves boats, who loves engineering, who loves the inside workings, even if they don't, I was not somebody who was interested in all that, and this book has blown my mind. Unbelievable views inside of these different watercraft. Really gorgeous book. Please do check it out. And another beautiful book by Nikki McClure, cut paper artist. Just phenomenal scenes in this. The underwater scenes are my favorite, but inside the boats is just unbelievable as well. Another one that gives you some idea of the inner workings of boats and also the people who work and live on them. All right, so now let's get to me. Enough about those guys. I want to start out by letting you know that when I was little, I always loved to draw. Yes, when I was here, here's me in the second grade. Can you believe that? Nice and neat in my little pigtails. I was somebody who, when the newspaper came to the house, I would take the comics pages out and I would trace my favorite characters, Snoopy and Garfield, over and over again until I could figure out how to draw those characters. It's really how I learned to draw, was by emulating some of my favorite comics and artists. And I would draw a lot of things for other people. If I knew what your favorite comic was, I would try to draw your favorite comic for you, like I did for my dad with Bill the Cat. I even had my own comic books as I was growing up that starred me and my girlfriends as comic book heroes. This was how I really grew in that love of art. Now, you would think that with that love of art, I probably grew up and became an illustrator for a job, studied in college, and then became an illustrator. But I was also really fond of science, nature, and the outdoors. And it was something that fascinated me. And so when I did go off to college to study, I decided to study science, and I became a science teacher. So these are some scenes from my classroom. I taught science at the middle school level for 21 years. Yeah, I just quit a couple of years ago so I could pursue making picture books full time. I loved it. I missed it. I really miss hanging out with the kids, but fortunately with this job, I get to do a lot of school visits, and that really fills my cup in that aspect. My first couple of books actually were inspired by my science teaching. It's Around Round World and The Reason for the Seasons are based on science concepts that I was teaching at the middle school level, and just thought to myself, I think younger kids could learn this if I put it in the form of a picture book. And so that's where I began. I also illustrated Bees Bees by Catherine Pryor, which was about pollinators, something I knew a lot about from my science teaching. And I've branched out since then. You can see How to Hug a Pufferfish, which of course won this award, Schools Wherever I Am, Home is Calling, another one by Catherine Pryor. And then last March, I released A Gooey Duck is Not a Duck by Candy Wellens. And just last week, a week ago today, the date that I am uh, recording this, released Sandcastles Are Forever. I think that was May 14th, which is written and illustrated by me. Okay, the inspiration for How to Hug a Pufferfish. Where did this story come into my head from? Well, first off, you need to know that when I was younger, I lived in New York. My dad was in the military. Actually, we lived a lot of different places. There was a army base in New York called Fort Hamilton where we lived. And my dad had a boat, and we would often go fishing out in Jamaica Bay. Nothing like Jamaica, but that's what it's called. And, we would catch fish and bring the fish home and cook the fish for dinner. But one time, my brother and I were really little, but we remember this very, very vividly. One time we caught a pufferfish. Yeah, you might be thinking like a pufferfish in New York, Ellie, no way. But actually, they can be as high up as New York. I know. And because I was not totally sure that I was remembering this correctly, I even looked up on the internet if there could be a pufferfish caught off the shores of New York. And I found this photo. It's from the Captree Bait and Tackle store there in New York from 2020. So there you go. Thank you, Captree, for proving my point. We had caught a pufferfish. I remember my dad bringing that pufferfish into a boat. It was very unhappy with us. It was not happy to be caught. And it was puffing bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was one of the craziest things that I have ever seen. This little fish just turning into like a beach ball. I was so fascinated by it. And I've just never gotten that picture out of my head. I've never gotten that fascination out of my head. So on the one hand, I had that in my brain. The other thing that inspired me is my daughter, Charlotte. And my daughter, she's, 12 now, but when she was younger, she was always the smallest one in class. You see the puppies there? If those were kids, she would be the teeny one on the side. And I don't know if you have the experience of being the smallest one in class ever. If you have been, you might have also experienced this thing where it's like all the other kids want to pick you up because you're like so tiny and they just love picking you up and taking you all over the place. I guess it makes them feel stronger or something. Well, that would happen to her. And a lot of times she thought it was fun, and a lot of times she thought it was funny. But sometimes it would get on her nerves, and she didn't really have the words to express her frustration with that. And I can remember one time we were at um, a birthday party and it was happening. She was getting carried over and over and over again by her friends. And she was getting more frustrated and more frustrated and more frustrated. And finally, she just said, "Yes, stop touching me." And I looked at her and I just thought, oh my gosh, she looks a little like a pufferfish. She was kind of all puffed up, little spikes sticking out with her fingers. And those two ideas together uh, were the inspiration for this story. Now, when I got this idea, I knew I wanted to write this story about this pufferfish that doesn't actually want to be hugged. I started with some research about pufferfish. I mean, I wasn't writing a story about, an actual pufferfish or a scientific article about pufferfish, but I knew that the more that I knew about what a pufferfish is like and what they do and what they need, how they live, that could really help inform a lot of parts of the story. So I started doing research online. I started following people on social media who had pet pufferfish just to see what they were like in real life. And then once I had my research done, I started writing the manuscript. And before I even could get words down on the page, I kind of had these few lines that kept going on over and over and over in my head. So you want to hug a pufferfish? Who could blame you? Right? It sounded kind of ridiculous because who would want to hug a pufferfish? It's a little preposterous and silly, but I wanted to embrace that silliness and keep going with it. So I wrote out a manuscript, a little less than 200 words, and then I was ready to create my storyboard. So, a lot of times illustrators start with a storyboard. We make teeny tiny pictures that we call thumbnails for every single page in the book. And a picture book has 32 to 40 pages, sometimes more, sometimes less. So, I wanted to have a plan for every single page. And I wanted to make sure that each page shows demonstrates what is in the writing and maybe even a little more that's not in the writing. And I also want to make sure that there's a lot of visual variety so that each page looks different and interesting and it's not the same boring scene over and over again. I take those little tiny itty bitty pictures, the thumbnails, and then I make them bigger and I refine them. I make them nicer and I put them into the format of what we call a picture book dummy. It kind of doesn't sound very nice, but it just means like a mock up, like a practice picture book that I just make black and white and out of paper to sort of see how it's going to go. And the dummy, this little make believe or made up version of the book, is what I send out to different editors around, that publish books. And I do that with the help of somebody called an agent. So I have an agent who helps me send those out. Her name's Adria, and she's great. Now, I also have to think about the characters, and this was something I had to do a lot of work on. I needed to make sure that my characters are really consistent. So they have to look like that character, Puffy the pufferfish, Star the sea star, Lobert the lobster, Oswald the octopus. No matter how I position them, where they are, their size next to other characters has to be the same so that my viewer doesn't get confused about who they're looking at. So I wanted to make sure I knew just how long they needed to be or tall they needed to be, how big they were next to the other characters. And finally, I had a lot of decisions to make about color. I really struggled with color on this book. At first, I had it pretty super bright, like hurt your eyes bright, like almost day glow bright. And then I toned it down, but when I toned it down, I added a lot of texture, so much texture that it was kind of hard to see some of the characters. I played around with things like line thickness and whether I wanted to use actual watercolors or whether I wanted to do it digitally. There were a lot of decisions to be made before I finally ended up with the look that I wanted. Lastly, the cover. And you might be thinking, lastly, why would a cover come last? It's the first thing that you see when you look at a book. But many times illustrators do the cover last. They need to know what the feel, the look of the entire book is on the inside before they can make something on the outside that represents that. And you may have heard the saying, never judge a book by its cover. But if you're an illustrator, you actually want people to judge the book by the cover. You want them to see that cover and be able to make a judgment about what the story inside might be like or about and whether that story is for them. All right, now that you know how the book was made, let's actually read the story. So here we go, How to Hug a Pufferfish by me, Ellie Peterson. This is dedicated to my dad because my dad's the one that took us out on that boat ride to go fishing and when we caught that actual pufferfish. So you want to hug a pufferfish. Who could blame you? Those big old bubble eyes, that gap-toothed grin, the spotty skin like moldy bread with mustard. Could anything be cuter? There are so many reasons to give pufferfish a hug. It could be that pufferfish has just come back from a long trip, like you can see here, the kelp forest. Maybe pufferfish has just won an award and you want to say, congratulations, like here for most creative. Or maybe pufferfish is your very best friend and you really want to show you care. There's only one teeny tiny thing to consider. Whoop. Oh my. Never fear. Pufferfish might welcome a hug from you under the right conditions. First, pufferfish doesn't like surprises. Thwomp. Ah, pow. Loud sounds can startle pufferfish. Deep, 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 deep. Don't tickle or poke pufferfish in place of a hug. And if things go badly, give pufferfish some time to depuff before trying again. Even if you love hugs, pufferfish might prefer something different. Pufferfish would like to see you coming. Pufferfish would like to be asked for a hug first. Pufferfish would like your hug to be slow and gentle. Pufferfish might even prefer a high tail or a fin shake instead? And you never know. Pufferfish might show you a different way to say I love you. Now, if you want to hug a sea urchin, that's a whole other story. Free hugs. And that is the end of the story. Now, I want to see if you possibly notice the sea urchin on other pages. I'm going to give you a tip. Two things to look for if you pick up this story and read it on your own sometime. That sea urchin is hiding on many of the other pages. Not all of them, but for instance, do you see where the sea urchin is hiding on this page? Yes. And I will tell you, sometimes you have to look really, really far into the background to see that sea urchin. The other thing is, I would encourage you to pay attention to what Puffy is collecting throughout the story and how all those collected bits and pieces end up in this collage at the very end. What did those things become? All right, so look for that if you pick up the story again. Now, pufferfish. I talked a little bit about pufferfish and my inspiration, but I want to mention a little bit more about why pufferfish are particularly perfect for this particular message on consent, on body autonomy, on being able to be in control of who touches your body and when and how. Um, so pufferfish, they puff up like this as a defense mechanism. It's to protect themselves, right? If you puff up really big, it's very hard to take a bite of you. And if you're spiky, it hurts to take a bite of you. And then add to that the fact that many pufferfish are poisonous. Yeah, it's a pretty awesome defense mechanism. But take a look at this pufferfish on the right. Do you think a fish that's shaped like that, like a big old beach ball, has an easy time swimming around? It doesn't. Do you think that it has an easy time getting food? It does not. No, so it's a great defense mechanism, but it's not a great way to live your life. And not only that, but it can take up to 5 hours for a puffer fish to go back to its normal size. I mean, that's like almost an entire school day. That's a long time, right? So if you are someone who's like a puffer fish, you want to avoid the situations that make you get puffed up in the first place. And if you know somebody who's like a puffer fish, you want to avoid the situations that make them get puffed up as well. And the best way that we can do that is to seek consent, is to ask somebody if we can hold their hand or put an arm around them or give them a hug or scratch their back. That's what we need to do in order to honor each person and their body autonomy. All right. So the last thing that I want to do with you guys is to show you how to draw your own pufferfish. So you're going to want to have a piece of paper and a pencil or some other kind of drawing implement. And you can, of course, pause this video. I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to actually share a whiteboard with you. So here we go. Okay, guys, I don't draw incredibly well on this whiteboard with just my trackpad, but I'm going to do the best that I can given the situation. All right, so see, what size line do I have? Maybe a little bit of a thicker line. When I draw a pufferfish, what I do is I start with the eyes. So I'm going to make 2 circles near each other, but not too close. They almost have the space of a full circle between them. Gotta have a lot of space, okay? And I'm gonna put a little dot inside, and suddenly something is looking at us, right? All right, now a pufferfish has very bulging eyes, and so I want these eyes to look bulgy too. So I'm actually gonna put an extra line below this and below this. Okay. My pufferfish has lashes. I use lashes when I want a character to look sweet. not just because, it's a girl or something. Everybody has eyelashes. I'm also going to give eyebrows, which I know is weird because fish don't have eyebrows, but eyebrows are so expressive and they really help to show emotion in your character. I'm going to put a couple little upside down U shapes here between the eyes, and then I'm going to connect a line between the eyes behind the U shapes. Okay? All right, now for the mouth. The mouth is going to be kind of close up to the eyes. We make a little U like this. That's a cute smile. And now we add a backwards J. It kind of looks like a Y. Yeah. And we can even add a couple of teeth to that. Pufferfish have two really strong teeth like this that help them crunch coral, which is where their food comes from. All right, now I'm going to make the pufferfish's puffed up body. Keep in mind, a pufferfish probably wouldn't be happy if it was puffed up, but we're going to show this pufferfish happy anyways. So I'm going to go out from this side of the eye and draw a big circle. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Here we go, all the way around to the other side. Can I make it? Can I make it? Dang it. Okay, now let's see here. On the belly, we want some little belly fins, and that just kind of looks like an upside down heart. We want some side fins, and that just looks like a little, to me, it looks like a little tortilla chip stuck into the side of my pufferfish. And I usually add a few lines so that it looks like it's got, the fin bones inside. We're going to add a tail here, which is just 2 points that come back like this. Again, some lines for your fin bones. And what have I forgotten? The spikes, right? All right, so now for the spikes, I'm going to add them all over. Long, short, thick, thin, all sorts of spikes all over my pufferfish. Well, that one kind of turned out a little strange. Like I said, it is very hard to draw with this laptop trackpad, but I'm doing my best here. Hopefully your spikes are coming out great. And you can have way more than I have. They could be shorter and closer together. They could be more curved, like ruffles if you want. It's however you decide to make them. Whoa, that one went a little wonky. Okay, that's all right. Sometimes you have a wonky spike. It's normal. Is it? Maybe. Okay, and we're almost done. There we go. Now, I like to put some little shorter ones here, like this, inside the circle because it helps the body to look a little bit more curved. There we go. Voila. We have a puffed up pufferfish. Hopefully yours came out great as well. That is it for me. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching my presentation. Thanks so much in advance for your interest in how to hug a pufferfish. I hope you pick it up and read it and read some of my other books as well. Have a wonderful day. Bye.